Hey there, ready to shake things up a bit? We're diving deep into Killing Sacred Cows today. It's by Garret Gunderson.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that one.
He really goes after those financial myths we've all heard, the stuff we maybe even believe without realizing it.
It's crazy how these money myths get so ingrained, Like we grow up with them, we hear them everywhere.
Totally. It's like this whole hidden script we're all following, and Gunderson's trying to rip up that script and give us a new one.
Right. It's like this book is a breath of fresh air, It really challenges all that conventional wisdom a lot of us grew up with.
Totally. So one of the first things Gunderson tackles is this whole finite pie idea about wealth.
Yeah, that whole scarcity mindset. It's like, if I get a bigger slice, you get a smaller one.
Exactly. Like there's only so much to go around. But Gunderson, he kind of flips that on its head, right?
Yeah, he's all about abundance, He's saying that with human ingenuity, with creativity, we can actually create value where we might not expect it.
It's like that old saying, one man's trash is another man's treasure.
Exactly. And sometimes it's not even trash, right? Like, think about vintage clothing. What someone might see as just an old t-shirt, someone else sees as a valuable collectible.
Totally. Or even something like, I don't know, a cup of coffee.
Okay, yeah.
Like the beans themselves have a certain value. But then you add in the skill of the barista, the atmosphere of the cafe, suddenly you're willing to pay way more for that same coffee.
Absolutely. That's human creativity and innovation in action, Transforming something basic into something way more valuable.
It's like adding value to the experience,
Yeah,
not just the thing itself.
exactly. Gunderson, he uses the printing press as an example in the book.
Oh, interesting.
Remember, back in the day, people were scared of it. They thought it would put everybody out of work. Scribes, copyists, all that.
Like it would eliminate jobs, yeah.
But what happened? It actually created whole new industries. And it helped to spread knowledge, right? So ultimately, it created more value, not less.
That's such a good point. It reminds me of how worried people were about ATMs, back when they first came out.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Everyone thought bank tellers would be out of a job.
Oh.
But what happened?
They adapted. They moved into more specialized roles, providing more personalized services.
Exactly. It's like that fear of scarcity can make us miss the bigger picture.
It's like we're so focused on what we might lose, we forget to look for the opportunities that change can create.
So true. Okay, so how do we ditch this scarcity mentality and actually embrace abundance? Like, it's easy to say, but how do we actually shift our thinking?
Well, one way is to focus on the value you're creating. Instead of getting caught up in comparing what you have to others, think about how you're contributing, even in small ways.
So it's about focusing on what we bring to the table, not just what's already on it.
Exactly. It's about recognizing the value of your skills, your talents, your contributions.
That's a really empowering way to think about it. It's not just about accumulating wealth. It's about creating and sharing value with others.
Exactly. And that actually leads us to another myth that Gunderson tackles this idea of delaying happiness for the long haul, putting off all the good stuff until retirement.
You mean work hard now, play later kind of thing?
Exactly. That mentality of sacrificing present enjoyment for some distant financial security.
It's like we're always living for the weekend instead of, actually living.
Right. And Gunderson, he's arguing that we should be maximizing our human life value now, not just in the future.
So not just working for the weekend, but actually living a fulfilling life now. It's about enjoying the journey, not just the destination.
Precisely. He challenges us to ask ourselves, how can I create more value right now, instead of just hoarding resources for some unknown future?
It's funny because that really resonates with me. There's this pottery class I've been dying to take, but I could keep putting it off because of the cost.
Yeah, I get it.
But maybe investing in that experience now, even if it means cutting back on something else, maybe that would actually bring me more joy, more fulfillment. And who knows, maybe it could even inspire new creative outlets that I can then share with others. It could be more valuable than whatever I'd save by waiting.
Exactly. And while saving for the future is obviously important, Gunderson's point is that it shouldn't come at the expense of living a fulfilling life in the present.
So it's all about finding that balance, right? Between enjoying today and planning for tomorrow.
Exactly.
He even challenges the whole 401k thing,
Right.
As the way to save for retirement.
Right. That's a pretty sacred cow to question.
Totally. Is he even allowed to say that? But it's interesting because those often touted guaranteed returns we hear about, they're not always so guaranteed, are they?
And he makes a really good point about the penalties for early withdrawal. Like, yeah, they exist, but maybe sometimes they might be worth the price of pursuing your passions earlier in life when you have the energy and the drive.
It's like that fear of missing out, but in reverse. Are we missing out on opportunities in the present because we're so fixated on the future?
It's definitely something to think about, right?
Yeah.
It all comes back to really examining what truly matters to us, what brings us joy, what brings us fulfillment, and are we making space for those things in our lives right now?
So good. This is already making me rethink my whole approach. Okay, so we've tackled the finite pie
Hmm.
and the idea of delaying happiness. What other sacred cows is Gunderson ready to tip over?
It's funny how these myths we're talking about, they kind of connect to each other, you know?
Oh, totally. Like they build on each other.
Yeah, like this whole idea that financial security comes from, holding on tight to what we have.
Oh, for sure. Gunderson actually tackles that one head on, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. It's like that saying, a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. Like, better to stick with what you know, even if it's not much, than risk it all for something bigger.
Right, play it safe.
Yeah.
But Gunderson's saying that's not always the best strategy, right?
Hmm. No, not always. He argues that this constant pursuit of security, it can actually lead to like fear-based decisions, and that can actually prevent us from, really going after what we want in life.
It's like that paradox, right, where
Yeah.
playing it too safe can actually hold you back in the long run.
Exactly. It's like staying in a job you hate just for the benefits, even though it's making you miserable.
Oh, tell me about it. I've been there.
Right. You're trading your present happiness for this illusion of stability.
Which might not even be all that stable when you really think about it.
Exactly. It's like Gunderson uses this analogy in the book, I think. It's like choosing to stay on the ground because you're afraid of heights, but then you're missing out on this incredible view from the top of the mountain.
Wow, yeah, I get that.
So instead of just clinging to that bird in the hand, Gunderson's saying, learn how to fly.
I love that. So how do we do that? How do we learn to, like, be with our wings?
Well, he talks about the importance of investing in our knowledge, our skills, becoming more adaptable, more resilient, so we can handle whatever life throws our way.
It's about being resourceful,
Right,
not just relying on one thing for your security.
exactly. He tells this story in the book. It's about this man who, like, on paper, he had it all. Financial success, the whole nine yards, but deep down, he was terrified of losing it all.
Oh, wow.
He refused to enjoy his wealth, always worried about the what ifs. It's like he was working his whole life to save for a vacation, but never actually letting himself go on the trip.
That's heartbreaking. He had all the money, but none of the peace of mind.
Exactly. And that's a really important point. True security, it doesn't just come from how much money you have, it also comes from your mindset,
Yeah.
from how you choose to approach uncertainty.
It's like security is an inside job.
Absolutely. And you know what? That actually ties into another myth that Gunderson tackles, which is this whole idea that money is power.
Oh, man, that's
Yeah.
a big one. It's like everywhere you look, movies, music, the way we talk about successful people.
And it often creates this like negative view of wealth, like money itself is this corrupting force.
Right, like money is the root of all evil.
But Gunderson, he's careful to make a distinction here.
Okay, what's that?
He's saying that money itself, it's actually inert. It's just a tool, right? The real power, it lies in human creativity, in our ability to create value for others.
So it's not about how much money you have, but how you use it.
Exactly. Like
Yeah.
he gives this really inspiring example in the book about, I think it was a single mom who basically rebuilt her life from scratch.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, she
Ah.
had this passion for healthy cooking, and she turned it into this thriving business.
I love those kinds of stories. It's like so often you hear about these successful businesses that started, in someone's home kitchen. Just like pure passion and a desire to share something they love.
That's exactly what she did. She took that love of food and turned it into a way to support her family and her community.
It's like that saying, do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life.
Right.
It's not about the money itself. It's about like the passion and the purpose behind it.
Exactly. The money is just a reflection of the value that you're creating, not the source of the power itself.
This is making me rethink my whole definition of success.
How so?
It's not just about like having a big bank account. It's about creating something meaningful, something that makes a positive impact.
That's awesome. And, speaking of creating something meaningful, Gunderson also tackles this myth that a lot of people fall for, especially in the investing world. It's this idea that high risk equals high returns.
Oh yeah, the old no pain, no gain mentality, but applied to money.
Exactly. But Gunderson's saying that true wealth, it actually comes from minimizing risk.
Okay, so how do you do that?
Through knowledge, through understanding. It's about being strategic, being informed, not just like rolling the dice and hoping for the best.
So less gambling, more like chess.
Exactly. He actually believes that the most lucrative investments are often the least risky.
Interesting. So how do we learn to spot those?
It's about really understanding the value of what you're investing in, doing your homework, and making calculated decisions.
So it's less about trying to beat the system and more about becoming a savvy player within it.
Exactly. And this actually ties into another myth he debunks, which is all about this self-insurance thing.
Self-insurance, what's that all about?
It's this idea that, like, holding on to your assets, avoiding insurance is a way to, save money.
Oh, right, because insurance can be expensive.
Exactly. But Gunderson's point is that this approach can actually leave you super vulnerable. What if you skip health insurance to save a few bucks and then something unexpected happens?
Oh, yeah, that could be financially devastating.
Exactly. And suddenly those savings, they don't seem so significant anymore.
It's like walking a tightrope without a safety net.
Perfect analogy. You might save money in the short term, but the risk is huge.
So what's the alternative?
Gunderson stresses that, like smart investors, they understand the value of transferring risk.
Okay, so through insurance.
Exactly. It's about having that peace of mind, that freedom to pursue those bigger opportunities without constantly worrying about those what-ifs.
That makes a lot of sense. So it's about finding that balance, right, between protecting yourself and being open to new possibilities.
Exactly. He really believes that the cost of not having insurance often outweighs the perceived savings.
Wow. This is giving me a lot to consider about my own approach to risk. Okay, so we've covered security, money as power, risk, insurance. What other sacred cows are left to topple? So we've been talking about all these financial myths, these sacred cows Gunderson wants us to ditch. But it's one thing to identify the myths, right? It's another thing to actually break free from them.
Totally. It's like, okay, I get it. I'm not supposed to think that way anymore. But then how do I actually change my thinking?
Exactly. So does he give us any practical steps? Like how do we actually put this stuff into practice?
He does. He lays out what he calls a formula for defeating these myths.
Okay, a formula. I like it. Lay it on me.
But he's careful to say it's not like, some magic bullet. It's not going to solve all your problems overnight.
Right. No get-rich-quick schemes here.
Exactly. It's more about shifting your mindset, approaching your finances, your whole life really, from a more, a more critical and empowered perspective.
Okay, I like the sound of that. So what's the secret formula?
Well, step one is surprisingly simple. Know your interests.
Know your interests. Okay, that seems kind of obvious, doesn't it? I know what I like.
Right, but he's not just talking about surface level stuff here.
Okay, so go deeper.
Yeah, he wants us to really dig deep and uncover what truly motivates us, not just financially, but in life. What are your values? What kind of impact do you want to make? What brings you joy?
So it's that difference between just grabbing a snack because you're hungry versus actually thinking about what would nourish your body and make you feel good.
Exactly. It's about being intentional, understanding your why.
And once you've got that figured out,
Then you can start making decisions that actually align with those values, with those deeper goals.
okay, so know your interests. What's next?
Next up, question everything.
Ooh, I like that one. Don't just take things at face value, right?
Exactly. Cultivate a healthy skepticism.
Gotcha.
Even if it's coming from someone you trust, don't be afraid to ask questions.
So it's don't just blindly follow the recipe. Taste the ingredients first. Make sure it's actually something you want to eat.
Perfect analogy. And that questioning, it leads naturally to the next step, which is seek understanding.
Okay, so don't just memorize the rules of the game. Understand why the rules are the way they are.
Right. Don't just learn how to play the notes, understand the music behind it.
Exactly. And I'm guessing that deeper understanding, it gives you more control, right?
Absolutely. It empowers you to make more informed decisions. And once you have that understanding, Gunderson, he encourages you to, think big picture. He says, apply the concept in other areas of life.
Oh, I love that. So if it's a sound principle, it should apply broadly, not just to your finances.
Exactly. Take diversification, for example. It's a financial principle, sure. But it also applies to, relationships, your skill set.
Right. Don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Exactly. And then last but not least, Gunderson, he emphasizes the importance of never stopping the learning process.
Committing to a lifelong process of education.
Yes. It's like the financial world, it's constantly changing, so we got to change with it.
It's like that whole growth mindset thing, but applied to money. I love it.
Exactly. The more you learn, the better equipped you'll be to, just navigate the complexities of money and build a life that you actually want.
This whole formula, it's like a great reminder that we actually have a lot more control over our financial lives than we think we do. It's not about blindly following someone else's rules, It's about defining success for yourself and then making choices that take you there.
That's what I love about Gunderson's message. It's all about empowerment.
Absolutely. Well, this deep dive into killing sacred cows has been, honestly, kind of mind-blowing.
In a good way, I hope.
Totally, in a good way.
Well,
It's definitely challenged a lot of my assumptions about money and wealth, and it's given me so much to think about.
awesome. Glad to hear it.
And to our listeners, I mean, if you're ready to, shake things up, challenge your own beliefs about money, I highly recommend checking out Killing Sacred Cows.
It's a good one.
It's a must-read, in my opinion.
Thanks for joining us on the deep dive, everyone.
Until next time.